Good evening, and welcome to the kickoff program celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history. I'm Victor Simmons Jr., the library administrator here, and it is my honor to stand before you today, not just as a speaker, but as a witness to the remarkable journey we commemorate. 30 years ago in 1994, the landscape of Atlanta was vastly different. The internet was in its infancy, and the city was pulsating with an energy of the upcoming Olympics in 1996. And of course, Freaknik was at its zenith. It was a time when many of our revered civil rights leaders still walked among us, inspiring change and igniting hope. As we gather here in the heart of a city transformed, we pay homage to the Auburn Avenue Research Library, a beacon of knowledge and culture that has stood the test of time. This institution opened its doors when there were very few like it. And even today, it remains a rare treasure. The day one staff of this library embarked on an uncharted journey without a blueprint, crafting a legacy that has become a cornerstone of our community. The changes in Atlanta since the library's inception reflect a city in constant evolution. From the skyline that has stretched ever upward to the cultural tapestry that has become ever more diverse, Atlanta has grown alongside the library. The population has surged, and with it, the stories and histories that weave together to form the fabric of our shared experience. To all the past and current staff, your dedication and passion have been a driving force behind this library's success. You have been the custodians of our history and the architects of our enlightenment. Your tireless work has ensured that the legacy of the Auburn Avenue Research Library is not only preserved, but continues to thrive. This library is special, not just for its collection or its programs, but for its spirit. It is a place where the past meets the present, where stories are told, where history is alive. It is a testament to the resilience and strength of a community that has overcome adversity time and time again. As we look to the future, we do so knowing that the legacy of the Auburn Avenue Research Library is in good hands. It is a legacy of empowerment, education, and community. It is a legacy that we all share and one that we will continue to build upon for generations to come. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of this journey. Here's to 30 years of the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history, and to many more years of knowledge, discovery, and growth. Thank you. Now, if you would all, those who can, please rise as we sing the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, by Mr. James Weldon Johnson. Lyric sheets have been provided for those who may need them, and there will be, as well as on the video. Excuse me. If you can hear that. Sing till earth and heaven ring, I know y'all don't sing this slow in church. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out of a gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of the weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest we stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our heart, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Thank you. Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you. Give yourselves a warm round of applause for that. All right. Now, so to lead us into libation is one of our reference division librarians, Mr. Frederick Cox.
The more things change, the more that they stay the same. Like the eternal flame that keeps on burning, the circle of life just keeps on turning. Children turn into adults, adults into elders, elders become ancestors. Then the circle's completed, the cycle repeated. Now, if you go where you're going without ever knowing your past or where you have come from, you travel with blinders on and can't see your own destiny. Now, our ancestors have seen the horizon we're following, often swallowing pride. They lived and died that we may live and prosper. So, it is through libation we seek inspiration from those who laid our foundation. Ancestral ties are what bind us all to the circle. Yes, in addition to being a librarian here, I'm also a spoken word artist, and that's usually how I start off libation when I am asked to pour it. For those who do not know, libation is a sacred ritual among melanated people where we pay homage to our ancestors, just as was done in Africa and has been done in America. Many of you remember the movie Coolie High, that scene where Cochise is about to take a drink, but before he does so, he says, "This is for the brothers that ain't here," and then he pours a little out and explains to his friends by saying, there are a lot of people who are dead or in jail, and we need to give them a little respect. So it did find its way across the Atlantic and has been practiced for as long as we've been here. Now, before the ancestors, we must first pour for the Creator, known by many names. When we pour, we also say Ashe, which means so it is. It's another way of saying amen. So we start with the Creator and say Ashe.
Ashe.
And then we must pay homage to those ancestors who laid the foundation for us in ancient Kemet. Most of you say Egypt, but I say Kemet because that's what it was called by its original people. So people like Queen Nefertiti, Cleopatra, um, Hotep, many others who I can't currently name. This one is for them, and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
Now, for those freedom fighters who fought for their people, for our people, to be free, people like Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, this libation is for our freedom fighters, Ashe.
Ashe.
And then more recent ones, ones that fought for us for civil rights, those former Black Panthers, names like, of course, Martin Luther King, Ashe.
Ashe.
El Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz, many of you know him as Malcolm X, Ashe.
Ashe.
Marcus Garvey, Ashe.
Ashe.
Well, you know some names, so just call them out.
MacArthur.
Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe. Vernon Johns, Ashe. John Lewis, Ashe.
Ashe.
And then I had to pour this special one for a mentor of mine who just made his transition and has done library programs throughout the system. Baba Yoga Bay, Ashe.
Ashe.
And then call the names of ancestors in your family. I'm gonna call my mother's name Zenobia Cox. You wanna hear, call your own family ancestors.
Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Now, with what little bit is left, let's pour for the return of our ancestors, those unborn that are coming back and are going to continue the path that our ancestors laid for them. Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe-o.
Ashe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frederick. We will now have our historical perspective read by our program division manager, Ms. Vicki Bean.
Good evening, all. Welcome. Thank you for celebrating with us. We're so excited that you all are here. We're excited that Auburn Avenue Research Library is still here, and we look forward to it being here beyond 30 years, even after tonight. So I want to share with you all a little bit of history. Many of you all who have lived in Atlanta know a lot, but for those transplants, you might not know. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, we'll all learn together. The Auburn Avenue Research Library, or AARL, is a constantly growing record of African, African American, and diasporic culture past and present. A cultural center hosting a variety of book talks, film screenings, exhibits, community events, and cultural celebrations. A powerful resource for scholars in African studies, including the faculty and students in the local university community and visiting scholars from abroad, and a community research center for any visitor to learn about local history, Georgia history, Southern history, genealogy, and the wider experience of people of African descent. Now, this was the original Carnegie Library, Auburn Branch Library from 1921 to 1959. At the turn of the 20th century, this Carnegie Library was built in Atlanta, raising the concern of Atlanta's Black residents, who rightly assumed that they would be excluded from using it. From 1902 until the opening of the Auburn branch on July 25th, 1921, the city offered no public library services to its growing African American population. The original building was located on the corner of Auburn and Hilliard Streets at 33 Auburn Avenue. Several women, professional and paraprofessional librarians, led the Auburn branch and established reading rooms and branches for the Black community on Atlanta's west side over time. Some of these luminaries included Alice Dugard Carey, 1921 to 1929, May Shepard, 1932 to 36, and Annie McPheeters, 1936 to 1949. Some of their patrons included a young Martin Luther King Jr. and Maynard Jackson Jr. Ms. McPheeters was the first professional librarian in the Atlanta Public Library system. A graduate of Clark University, now Clark Atlanta University, the Library School of Hampton University, and further study at Columbia University. She would eventually oversee all segregated branches that serve Atlanta's Black residents and ultimately organize the desegregation of Atlanta public branches in 1959. She would later become one of the first African American faculty members at Georgia State University. During her tenure at Auburn, Ms. McPheeters established the non-circulating Negro History Collection in 1934. The integration of the library system also coincided with the closure of the Auburn Branch Library, which had served as a segregated central library for the branches open to Atlanta's Black residents from 1921 through 1959. The Negro History Collection would move to West Hunter Street and Central Library Special Collections before finding its current and permanent home at AARL. In 1971, the collection was renamed the Samuel W. Williams Collection on Black Americana in honor of the former Friendship Baptist Church pastor and Morehouse professor. So now a little bit from 1994 to present. On May 16th, 1994, the current Auburn branch of the Fulton County Library System opened its doors, still as a public library, but now as a special research library on African American culture and history, a first in the southern United States. Today, the nearly 60,000 square foot facility houses hundreds of thousands of items, including books, microforms, periodicals, dissertations, audiovisual materials, ephemera, oral histories, digital collections, electronic databases, and archival collection. The work of the Auburn Avenue Research Library is organized into 3 divisions: programming and outreach, reference and research, and archives. Just a little bit about the programming division. It hosts internal and external events hosted by faculty, community organizations, alumni associations, nonprofits, citizens, and other stakeholders of Fulton County. The first floor houses an auditorium, which we're enjoying tonight, the Children's Gallery, the Carrie McFeeters Gallery, the Authors and Writers Lounge, and the Heritage Education Center. Now, these spaces are used for instructional programs and can be requested by individual and organizational patrons of AARL. Our Reference and Research Division houses a non-circulating reference collection on the second floor. In addition to academic works on African American culture, there are also large collections of fiction, children's literature, graphic novels, comics, bound periodicals ranging from The Crisis to Jet, O, the Oprah magazine, to XXL. Current Black newspapers like the Birmingham Times and Los Angeles Sentinel, along with audiovisual materials including movies, theatrical performances, documentaries, and recorded music. The Archives Division on the third floor houses rare materials and unique archival collections developed internally or donated by local scholars, organizations, and individuals. Some prominent archival collections include the Andrew Young papers, Hosea Williams papers, Atlanta Life Insurance Company records, Atlanta NAACP branch records, and the funeral program collection. New collections are being acquired and are available to the public digitally and by appointment. Now, this statement was prepared by one of our reference librarians, Mr. John Alston. But if you wanted to know more about the head librarians and some of the administrators, we should have it listed within the facility, but I'd like to read this briefly because some of you might know some of these names. Auburn Branch head librarians from 1921 to 1959, or at least you've heard of them. I want you to know about these tonight. Alice Duggett Carey from 1921 to 29. Mildred Gaines from 1932. May Z. Marshall Shepard from 1932 to 36. Annie L. McFeeters, for which part of her name is listed on our gallery space, 1936 to 1949. Miss R. Leathers from 1949 to 1957. And Goldie Culpepper Johnson from 1959. And our administrators in terms of history, we had Julie V. Hunter from 1993 to 1998. Dr. Joseph F. Jordan, 1998 through 2003. Francine Henderson from 2003 to 2013. And currently Victor Simmons, Jr. from 2016 and present. So a little bit of history. We hope you take all advantage of all the resources that we have here. So I'd like to turn this back to our current administrator, Mr. Victor Simmons. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicki. In 1994, poet and activist Baba Askia M. Touré was commissioned to write a poem for the then new library called the Atlanta an Anthem. To read Baba Touré's poem along with his own piece, Why We Gather, we have poet, entrepreneur, father, husband, son, and friend to the Auburn Avenue Research Library, Mr. Mario A. Reyes.
How's it going, Auburn Avenue Research Library? How's everybody doing this evening? Let's try that one more time. I need more energy than that. How's everybody doing this evening? It's the 30th anniversary. How you guys doing? Outstanding, outstanding. My name is Mario Reyes. I am one of the transplants that she referenced earlier, and I want to thank Auburn Avenue in Atlanta for adopting a New Eurekan young man that was trying to find some place that was more healthy to raise my children. So I want to thank you guys. I have the pleasure of reading a poem entitled Atlanta, an Anthem. It's very rare that a poet gets to share somebody else's words, and I feel honored to be doing that for you guys today. Now, if you guys have seen Love Jones or been in any poetry slams, you usually snap fingers, right, like this? We don't do that no more. We don't do that no more, all right? So you guys go to church. So when the preacher's getting busy and he's doing his thing, what do you guys say? Amen. Amen. Say it louder. Say, you can say whatever it is that you want. If you feel compelled to, you will not mess up my flow. All right? All right, let's try this. Atlanta, an anthem. Spring erupts in the legendary city. Bright beginnings blossom in the air. The trees dazzle, all with incandescent beauty, like sepia maidens at a fair along sweet Auburn Avenue. A new edifice arises like an ancient temple of the Nile. Poets, scholars, and artists gather, smile minds alike with creative desire in the time of primeval beauty. Lush mouths law, tradition / folkways. Antebellum fame in this day. Bordering on the millennium, I won't sing of saints entombed in the legendary city, martyrs seeking in beloved community, nor peace banners amidst Confederate battle flags. No, I seek the path walked by prophets, visionaries, keepers of the flames, librarians, scribes, archivists. Records this day speak words of the culture, renaissance in our history and heritage, and rediscover pyramids, where con men conjure deserts, and yes, the phoenix does arise from pyres of ignorance. Rejoice at the precious carols ringing in our children's sacred voices, proclaiming hope and healing in myriad vistas of resurgent spring. Atlanta, an anthem by Baba Askia M. Torre. Poem. Can you hear me? There we go. There we go. All right, like I said, I'm originally from New York. So I've learned, thank you. See, New York's always in the house. New York's always in the house. And I've learned so much since I've been here over the last 9 years. You know, I came when my daughter was in first grade, my son's in third, and I see that they are all the way ATL right now. They are 100% ATLians. One of the things that happened when I moved here, because I didn't know anybody, I relied on my best friend being my poetry. And I wrote this poem specifically for Atlanta, so I would like to share it with you all. It's called Why We Gather. Now, remember, we don't do this no more? I'm going to share with you a little bit of my culture from hip-hop. So when I say ayo, I need you specifically to stand up really loud and say, aight. I actually want everybody to do it, okay? I'm joking. I just had to do it. All right, let's try it one more time. Ayo! Let's try that one more. Victor, do you believe that? Did you hear that? He shook his head back there. Let's try it one more time. Ayo! There's something profound to be said about walking through foreign doors and knowing that you are right at home. When we get to listen to our Auntie Aretha sing her soulful sounds over the loudspeakers, there is something profound to be said about having a seat and knowing that you are welcomed at that table, invited in spite of your hoodie, your Jordans, your swag, your slang, your skin. I'm speaking about that American tradition to try to always get us to assimilate to them. How can they define professionalism when it's because of them we are all living within this marginalized system? There is something profound to be said about why it is that we gather. You see, in you all, I see the strength of the talented 10th. And you have no idea how proud I get every time you invite someone over so we can extend that percent. A community that is centered on collaboration, protege, and mentor. And that's why I felt right at home the moment that I entered. Because in you all, see my brothers and sisters, Hannah Bull and Candace, you kings, you queens, you are the catalyst for change and the manifest, the hunters, the gatherers, the mothers and fathers of these varying shades of beautiful black lives that truly matter. We gather because iron sharpens iron, and it's communities just like this that have taught me mastery. We gather to prove to this world that our lives are much more than a slogan. We gather to show the world that in spite of COVID, black-owned companies are now opened. We gather to help give a voice to every suppressed voter. We gather within this shared space just so we can share face. The act of gathering is the principal tenet, and now with shared faith in each other. We gather because that is not the expectation, but haven't you noticed that every time we do, we have changed this world for the better? This is why we gather, and this is why we must. Ashe to amen. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Mario. We are now at the greeting portion of our program. Before I introduce anybody or bring anyone up who wants to say some words, the director of the Fulton County Library System, Ms. Gail Holloman, could not be here tonight, so I will read a statement on her behalf. She was not feeling well today. Hello to each of you. I am so sorry that an illness makes it impossible for me to be with you this evening. I am very excited to know the Auburn Avenue Research Library has reached the milestone of 3 decades of programming and services, presenting the beauty, achievements, and contributions of people of the global African diaspora. Thanks so much for making this your research library, for attending numerous programs, events, and exhibits. Special thanks to the current staff and those who were here at the beginning and through so much growth and development. Atlanta is steeped in the traditions of the civil rights movement and public service, which makes it the perfect setting for the gem that is the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history. Have a wonderful evening, Gail Holloman. Okay, so I don't know who is here at the moment. So if there is anyone who is trying to give greetings, please come forward, and the mic is yours. Ms. Priscilla Borders is here from the, from the Board of Trustees, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
It's a busy
You're
day.
fine. Good evening, everyone. Don't have a song, don't have a dance. I feel a little bit, I'm gonna let you down, but please know, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, myself, Priscilla Borders, and I wanna give a shout out to my counterpart on the board as well. She's Vice Chair, Nina Radikovich. We send you greetings and thank you everyone for being here tonight. Please know that we do value our work, and we know what a gem this library is to the system. This is one of 34 libraries we have here. And what makes this library unique, it sits on Historic Avenue, and it's a suppository of history that must not be forgotten. And we know that's a history that is part of American history. So we know that this is vital to not only the present, the past, but more importantly to the future, specifically for our children. So I thank everyone, from Administrator Simmons and all the staff and the librarians here for all the work that they do, and to the volunteers, your hours and your time and your effort, we see you. For everyone who's involved with anything with this library and our 34 libraries, we thank you, and we wish the library not only 30 plus more, but infinite success. Thank you so much on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you so much, Ms. Borders. Okay, let me find my place here. Okay, let me look out into the audience to see who's here that I don't. Got you. All right, so we have representatives on behalf of U.S. Congresswoman Nikema Williams, Mr. Jared McKinley here, who represents the 5th Congressional District. to give greetings.
How's everybody doing? I'm too short to stand behind that. So, few words. I want to say thank you to the library. There's a lot of times we get so busy that we forget our past. We're always thinking about the future. We're running, we're trying to pay bills, we're doing all that stuff. But we forget about our past, and our past is so important because that's our inner strength. Our past is so important because people like our grandparents, people like our great-great-great-parents, they tried to instill certain things, and as kids, we were pushing it away. It's like when we get to this age, we recognize the power that our past had. We recognize what we have to pull on to keep us going further. So this building is amazing. We were here this past weekend on Saturday. Victor gave us the opportunity to bring kids who looked like me and kids who did not to experience this wonderful place. We actually have the 2024, it's a Congresswoman, Nikema Williams, 2024 Congressional Art Competition. These kids in high school, they develop art, they submit it to our office, and Victor and his amazing staff and board allowed us to present that art in their gallery, which is absolutely amazing for these youth to walk into a gallery, a real gallery, and see their work. You look at their work, and you say, oh my God, are we giving our youth the kudos that they deserve? Because they're talented. And so with that, I want to say what you guys do here is amazing. I told Victor during the event that we're going to do everything we can do, and please call on us to help promote this library to the nth degree. I know COVID did a lot of things, and it slowed a lot of processes. We had a television show that we're working on with kids, and the show's called This Is Our Country, How Big Is Your Dream?, where we inspire kids to be amazing. But it was during COVID, and COVID shut everything down. So I mentioned to Victor that we're starting the production of it again. Just like this library, the goal is to make kids know that there's nothing they can't do. There's no place they can't go to get assistance. And there are adults out there who believe in them and want to just reach out a hand and pull them up. So I say thank you again to everyone here. I say thank you to Victor. I say thank you to the Auburn Avenue Research Library. And please call on us if you need us, okay? The Congresswoman, she was also here this past Saturday, and she wanted to make sure that we give something that can be here forever. And so she drafted a proclamation that we'd like to present, and I'd like to present it to Victor as well as, you have board members here, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do you mind coming on stage? Okay, so the Congresswoman drafted a very long piece, and because I'm not an avid reader, don't judge me. I'm going to read some of it, and I'm going to say once again, thank you for everything that this place represents. Whereas the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history is a part of the Fulton County system and is the first public library in the Southeast to offer archival collections dedicated to the study and research of African American culture and history, as well as other peoples of African descent. And whereas the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history has been a cornerstone of the greater Atlanta area for over 6 decades. Its unique collections, archives, and educational landscapes serve as a hub of resources, knowledge, and learning of African American history, and we should be proud to say it loudly. The library continues to embody a legacy that is relevant today and resides in the fighting 5th Congressional District of Georgia. Whereas the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history anchors the west end of Atlanta's sweet Auburn Historic District. It is the corridor where African American excellence in education, business, entrepreneurship, and community and civic leadership thrives. It is my honor on behalf of Congresswoman Nakima Williams of the 5th Congressional District of Georgia to present this proclamation to the Auburn Avenue Research Library.
I think I have one as well. Well, I think so. Thank you for that, Jared, and thank you to Congresswoman Nakima Williams. It was truly a pleasure working with them, and having their support is definitely a blessing for us here at Auburn. I think that would be all as of right now for those who are going to give greetings. So with that, we will now begin our discussion, From Vision to Reality, the Journey of Our Library. Moderating the discussion will be Ms. Joyce Jokes. Joyce E. Jokes graduated from Spelman College with a BA in Political Science, minor in History in 1970. In the Atlanta University, she received her MLS, which is Master's in Library Science, in December of 1972. Ms. Jokes began working at the Atlanta Public Library September 3rd, 1973 as Neighborhood Information Librarian at the Capitol Avenue branch, which was on the corner of Atlanta Avenue and Capitol Avenue in Peoplestown. In 1980, she began working in the Special Collections Department as assistant manager. She coordinated the move and assisted in the creation of the special collections at the then new Central Library. Beginning in the mid-1980s, she began purchasing African American and African microfilm collections with end-of-the-year funds, particularly magazines and newspaper collections. Ms. Jokes then moved to the Auburn Avenue Library Auburn Avenue Research Library in August 2000 and served as assistant manager of the research division. She retired from the Atlanta Fulton Public Library in April of 2002. So please give a warm round of applause for Ms. Jokes. Sharon Robinson. Ms. Sharon Robinson is a native of New York City, born and raised in Harlem, New York. Mrs. Robinson received a bachelor's degree from Herbert H. Lehman College in the Bronx, my hometown, and a master's of library science degree from Queens College, my alma mater as well. During her technical and professional career, Ms. Robinson worked at the New York Public Library in New York City. I did too. Sharon, we got so much in common. From 1978 to 1989. She worked at the main branch, which is now the Stephen A. Schwartzman Building, and left that for the Schomburg Center in 1980, where she transferred. In 1989, she joined the Atlanta Fulton Public Library System as a Black Studies librarian in the Special Collections Department at the Central Library. In 1993, she was appointed to the staff of the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history. During her tenure at the library, Mrs. Robinson served as manager of the Archives Division, Program Division, and Reference and Research Division. Mrs. Robinson also provided administrative support, serving as associate administrator, and as interim research library administrator. From 1978 to 2017, with humble beginnings as a temporary technical support, to a professional career culminating in 40 years of public library service. Mrs. Sharon Robinson. Janice White Sykes Rogers has been a librarian and community historian for the past 32 years, specializing in the collection and preservation of resources about the African American experience and Southern culture. She was a curator of the Samuel W. Williams Collection, one of the largest collections of African American material in the Southeast. She has also developed bibliographies and finding aids to make the materials from the Auburn Avenue Research Library more accessible to researchers at all levels, from the seasoned scholar to the middle schooler. Very active in the African American Family History Association and Georgia African American History Preservation Network, she has been central to development of many books, exhibits, conferences, and multimedia projects. Ms. Rogers has extensive experience in the areas of management, personnel management, and outreach programming. While at Auburn Avenue Research Library, she was responsible for the library services, including collections development, personnel, management, and outreach programming. Under her leadership, the AARL developed a staff including creating librarian competencies for new hires, Librarian 1, and budget and acquisition librarians. In addition, the library acquired several major collections, including, but not limited to, the Bishop College Library, Casper L. Jordan coordinator at the time, and the Yankee Rare Books. The collections were appraised with funds by the Library of Congress. While there, her outreach initiatives included Georgia history, a funded statewide two-day conference, Southern Literature, American Library Association, pre-conference workshop, the Strengths of the Black Family, a funded one-day conference, and the annual Black History Essay Contest. She also served as humanities scholar for the 1990s Summer Olympics, assigned to Ireland delegates. Ms. Sykes-Rogers is a Spelman College and Atlanta University graduate with expertise in African American and Southern history, collections, rare books, and oral histories. Ms. Janice Sykes-Rogers. Mrs. Gloria Strong was born in Edenton, North Carolina. She attended Elizabeth City State University in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. She began her career working as a clerk, stenographer, and switchboard operator at the Central Library. From November 1993 to October 2023, Mrs. Strong has held positions as the Administrative 2, Administrative 3, and Administrative Coordinator 1 at Auburn Avenue Research Library. In October 2023, she retired as an Administrative Coordinator 1 after 40 years and 5 months working for Fulton County. Mrs. Strong provided support to the Research Library Administrator and Division Managers, indicating her role in facilitating the smooth operation of the library's administrative functions. That is not even close to what she does. She did so much more. Mrs. Strong served as chair of the Staff Morale Committee, demonstrating her leadership skills and dedication to enhancing workplace morale and camaraderie. Mrs. Strong's journey from the Atlanta Fulton Public Library to the Auburn Avenue Research Library demonstrates commitment and dedication to her work, and her contributions were integral to the smooth functioning of the Auburn Avenue Research Library and well-being of its staff and community initiatives. Outside of her work, she is a member of the Atlanta Metro Alumni Chapter of Elizabeth City State University and the Tau Epsilon Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is East Point in College Park, Georgia. Mrs. Strong also helped secure for the Archives Division the records of the Tau Epsilon Omega Chapter collection of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. If you know Mrs. Strong, you know. We gotta make sure we say it all, right? And Christians for Change Baptist Church in Riverdale, Georgia. Mrs. Gloria Strong. And last person who will be sitting on this panel, Kristen White, is the statewide executive director of the Georgia Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. She is a graduate of Georgia State University with a bachelor's degree in art, in history and Valdesa University with a master's in library and information science. She is also a 2016 graduate of the competitive Georgia Public Library Service, University of Georgia Carl Vinson Institute of Government Pinnacle Library Management Training Program. That was a lot to say. Over half of the graduates from the program have gone on to become public library system directors. She counts among her previous professional experiences memberships on the inaugural staff of the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history, time as outreach manager and assistant director of the Augusta Richmond County Public Library System, and state director of South Carolina Talking Book Services. At Auburn Avenue, she was initially hired to be an assistant in the reference division, but eventually moved to programming where she would often include her only daughter, Blair, in work activities. Blair has since gone on to receive a BFA in dance from the Ailey School at Fordham University with a minor in African American Studies that allowed her to spend the summer after her junior year in Ghana studying African dance. Both mother and daughter partially attribute this accomplishment to their time spent together at Auburn Avenue Research Library. All right. So, without further ado, let's have the panelists come on up, have a seat.
Good evening. I'm Joyce Jelks, Sharon Robertson, Janice Sykes Rogers, Gloria Strong, and Everhart White. I have to say Everhart because that's what everybody knows here in Atlanta, but her name is White. And every time someone says White, I have to think about it. I said, okay. So, we're going to tell you a little bit about Auburn Avenue, the behind the scenes, and what happened, and how we got started. Sykes Rogers is going to start off by telling us about the vision and the concept of Auburn Avenue. Okay. You got to get your phone.
The name that comes forth is Casper Leroy Jordan. Everybody say Casper Leroy Jordan.
Casper Leroy Jordan.
This facility was his idea. And one of the reasons I was so pleased to be asked to join is so I can talk about before this building. Before this building, you've heard Mrs. Annie McFeeters, who was one of my mentors and mentor to many. She was a trailblazer. Not only did she find a little money from the Atlanta budget for the city of Atlanta, she had families donate donate books. And Reverend Dr. Borders and his family donated so many pastors and leaders and the Atlanta University Center. So it didn't start with a lot of money from the city. It came from the heart of the people. And I want to say there's something called the Atlanta Way. And those of us who follow Atlanta know the Atlanta Way is always about conversations across race and class. And you can read more about it. Some publications are coming out. I have a friend in the audience who's writing about that. And in the Atlanta Way, people meet in their private homes, at restaurants, particularly Pascal's. And I can remember as a teenager going with my aunt and uncle, who were professors at Atlanta University, to Herons. We were sort of in the first group to start going to Herons and the Diplomat and all of these places to so-called desegregate. So this building came from those conversations, the Atlanta Way, the way that business is done here. Most of you will not see it out in public. Michael Lomax is one of the persons who found the money along with John Lewis. And I have a neighbor who's in the audience, and I want her to just stand up. I'm putting her on the stage, if you will. Cleta Winslow served 28 years as an Atlanta City Council person. And I do this to her. We're neighbors. Thank you, Miss Winslow. She helped find the money. And as the old movie says, follow the money. It's nice to talk about buildings, but who found the money for it? And let's not leave out Vincent Ford. Vincent Ford was at the state level, state senator. And so you have John Lewis, Vincent Ford, Cleta Winslow, and Michael Lomax was famous behind the scene for finding money for rare books. And that's how he and I and Joyce Jokes, and she can talk more about it, we were able to actually go to bookstores around the United States. So collection development doesn't come through the mail, okay? It's librarians who know what they're doing and people like Gloria Strong to keep us straight. And so that's a little bit about the background, but remember, everything that you see now is through the Atlanta way. Thank you.
Sharon Robertson is going to talk about getting here, the actual move.
Well, good evening, everyone. My first introduction to AARL was when I was a staff member at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in New York. We were told at the time there was a contingent, a group coming up from Atlanta who was going to build a research library similar to the Schomburg. And so that is when I met Casper Jordan, Michael Lomax, and two other individuals I can't recall. But I do recall that visit, when they came up to New York to visit the Schomburg Center. Now, fast forward, in 1989, I moved to Atlanta, forgot all about the AARL as part of a project here. But nonetheless, I became part of the project in 1993. I was hired by this lady, Janice Sykes, and Joyce Jokes, and Gloria Mims, to be a staff member at the Special Collections as a Black Studies librarian. So I joined the staff. And then for those 4 years, I learned a lot about the history of the collection and its materials. And then in '93, the Special Collections closed. The project was underway, and I was assigned to be the coordinator to move the collection that these ladies had built since the '80s, the Atlanta way, all of this material, to the research library in 1994. So I was the coordinator who processed the material with a staff in which Kristen White was a member of that staff to process all of the materials that was in the collection, and it was a monumental project. From rare books to microfilm to archives, archival records of individuals to vertical file collections, some audiovisual material. We had to process all that to get it ready for the move to the research library in '94. So I was involved with that part of the process. And then over time, when the library opened, then I became the manager of the archives division.
Okay. Christian Everhart White was in charge in the first worked as a reference in the reference department, and she's going to tell us about that.
I actually was in charge of absolutely nothing in this building. I was probably third from the last on the totem pole on the opening day staff. But who was in charge of the reference department at the time was a woman named Mary Ann Bennett. I moved to Atlanta in 1977. I was 7 years old, and at the time there was an Atlanta Fulton Public Library in the basement of Greenbrier Mall. across from the movie theater. And this was before the Atlanta child murders and all that, so your parents would turn you free on Saturdays, and you spent time at the movie theater and you spent time in the library. And I will never forget, I never told y'all this story. She put me out of that library one day. She was the manager at the time in that library. I checked out a copy of Walter D. Myers' Fast Sam, Cool Clyde and stuff. It was a signed copy, and I lost it. I will never forget that. But anyway, fast forward to Auburn Avenue, and Marianne Bennett was the manager, the initial manager of the reference department. And she kept us in line. If anybody knew MA, we called her MA. If anybody knew MA, she did not suffer fools lightly. She expected you to be on time. She expected you to know your stuff, and she expected you to have done what she needed you to have done. So, I had to do everything, shelf books, answer reference questions, and so forth. And on opening day, one of my responsibilities was to show a couple people around in the area where we had, at the time, which was new technology, it was CD-ROMs. And Miss McFeeters was still alive. She was with us on opening day. She was a short, slight woman, but she had been Martin Luther King's childhood librarian. And so I was standing next to the CD-ROMs, and I was trying to show her how to use one of the CD-ROM products, the African American Encyclopedia, I'll never forget. And she grabbed the mouse from me, and she said, "I can do it." And I couldn't, I was somewhere between amused and kind of afraid, because Martin Luther King's librarian just snatched the mouse from me, and MA just kind of looked at me and did a little eye roll. But my favorite MA story and my favorite reference department story was, I think it was in 1996, the government shut down. And they had been fussing at MA about buying items in multiple formats. And it was the African American Encyclopedia. We were getting it on CD-ROM, and we had it in paper copy as well. And she insisted on getting both. And they were fussing at her about spending the money, and we didn't have enough money to do that. She was going to have to make a choice. And MA got up and said, "What are y'all going to do when the lights go out?" And turned around and went out and had a smoke break. She was a chain smoker. Went out and had a smoke break. I tell this story all the time because the lights, to me, are figurative, not necessarily literal. And the lights went out when the government shut down. And there were 3, quote-unquote, black libraries that, like ABC in New York, the national office was calling to get the answers to questions. And it was us, Schaumburg, and the library in New Orleans. And MA would answer the calls and hang up the phone, and did they call again? They'd answer the calls and hang up the phone. And I just remember thinking when that happened, the lights went out, and MA was ready. Lights went out. So that's my early reference memories. That's my most prominent one.
Thank you. Now, Gloria Strong. Gloria Strong has been our administrator. She's been working behind the scenes ever since we opened. And she just recently retired. So she's going to tell us about the behind the scenes of getting everybody organized.
Good evening, everyone. My time here at Auburn, when I look back on it, it has just been amazing, and it's something that I would not trade for the world. I've met lots of good staff people. I would always tell people that we have the best librarians in the state, in the world, because you can call and ask them anything. You can call and tell them what you're looking for, even though you may not know what you're looking for, and they could help you find it. They were just diligent people, and they still, the staff that's here now still are. And I've always admired that about the staff here at the library. I couldn't be a librarian. I just could not be. But I always held them in reverence. They were good people. They worked hard, and some of them probably looked at me like maybe a slave master because there were timesheets that had to be completed on time. There were travel forms that had to be completed on time. So just a lot of behind the scenes working, administrative work. I enjoyed all of the administrators that I worked for, starting with Ms. Hunter, and then there was Dr. Jordan, and then there was Philip Cherry for a little while, and then in between, when the system was waiting to hire the quote-unquote administrators, Sharon filled in, Lucilia filled in, and then we had Emma Stanley. That's correct. That's right. I forgot about that. And then my last administrator, who came in and said he probably didn't know what to do with me, but I told him what he needed to do, and he fell in line and did exactly what I needed him to do. But through those years, I do appreciate all of the support that I received from staff and allowing me to do the job that I was hired to do, and that was to keep them in line.
I'm a moderator, but I also worked as the curator of purchasing books and materials for the Auburn Avenue. And we started working on this collection, believe it or not, in the mid-1980s. Every year at the end of the year, there's money left in the budget. And I would get a call, because I was in special collections. We have so much money and we need to spend it in an hour and a half, maybe 2 days. That's a lot of time. So I had a folder of all these things that in the 80s, they were going from buying, people were consolidating collections, the computers that came out, and so they were getting rid of their collections, or they were putting all these papers and things on microfilm. So I had a folder. Everybody knows about my wish folder. All these things that cost a lot of money that didn't fit in a regular budget. So we were able to buy microfilm of the African American newspapers, of the African newspapers. We would buy whole collections. One of the big collections we bought was Bishop College. It closed in the 80s, and we were able to buy the Bishop College collection. Mr. Hosea Williams died. His family sold us his papers. Now, anytime you buy anything from Fulton County that costs over a certain amount of money, you gotta go through a whole lot of paperwork. It's gotta be approved by the Board of Trustees, and then it has to go and get on the docket to be approved by the Fulton County Commissioners before you could buy his stuff. Now, can you imagine a library trying to buy materials, and we're gonna tell them, oh, we want the materials, but we're gonna take us 6 months to get it. One of the things that I enjoyed the most was working with our local rare book dealers. One was named Dan Abrams, and the other one was David McCoy. And David McCoy's friend, when you put things in public storage and you don't pay for it, they have an auction. Well, one of his friends bought, sight unseen, a closed auction up in Marietta of a storage. So he came down to us and told us, I got this stuff that we bought, and it's a cameras, old cameras, and negatives. At the time, we had someone who was a native Atlantan, and he looked at the negatives. And that's how we got the George Wright photograph collection in cameras. Because this man bought an auction. The other thing I did was work with the Yankee Book Company. Now, the library, the Fulton County makes us have bids on who's our vendors going to be. So whoever wins the bid, we have to work with them. But Yankee Books was a small press in New Hampshire, a small book dealer in New Hampshire. So I told them, and they came down here, and we wrote a profile of what we want to buy for Auburn Avenue. Currently, to this day, it's always been that they only print a small run of books about us. African Americans, Africans, Latin Americans, all the specialists, they've print a few copies. And so we wrote the profile so that we could get the books about African Americans in Africa. And they used that profile that we wrote for Auburn Avenue and sold it to all the Afro-American collections, studies collections at universities. They used our profile. And we got the books, and that's what we have the only copy of certain books here in the system. Now, Sharon is going to talk to us about her working with the missing and murdered children files.
Oh. When I was hired in 1989, I was assigned the project to convert the Atlanta Murder and Missing Children's vertical file collection into microfiche. And so I was responsible for processing and preparing and forwarding it on. That was a fascinating collection. Certainly gave a lot of food for thought about the activities going on. I was an outsider looking in at this point, and so I certainly saw a lot of, came to my own conclusions about things as I processed and prepared that collection. And in addition to that collection, I also processed the vertical file collection that the special collections had into microfiche as well. But if you allow, I'd like to talk about a few things about my time as manager of the Archives Division. Mr. Simmons mentioned I was manager of the Archives, the programming, and reference and research. As the manager of the Archives Division, I wanted to say that this collection is just wonderful. And although we do have collections like Andrew Young and Hosea Williams and Jean Charles Young and Fred Bennett and the Land Chapter of NAACP, we also have some wonderful work materials of small collections of the first Black police officer, the first Black fireman, the first Black librarian, the first Black pharmacist, so there was this effort to go out and capture Atlanta's history, Black history. And so I did it the Atlanta way, going out, meeting individuals, speaking to them, talking to them, and getting them to trust us to take care of their materials. It's hard to let go of materials that you've had for years. So to gain their trust and to have that type of material here. We had a donor who came from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who drove all the way here because he said, although it's been an honor to be the custodian for his family history, he could not take it on anymore. And he wanted to transfer his papers, his family papers, to the library. So when they have family reunions, he can bring that family to the library so that they can see their family history. And I think that's one of the missions of the library as well, is to capture and preserve and protect history, family history, local history, so that it'll be here not just for us, but for our generations to come. When I managed the program division, the research library presented so many wonderful programs. I counted between 1994 to 1999, we did over 1,000 programs. And it was just a wonderful presentation to the community. I think our zenith came when Dr. Jordan was on board. And we had wonderful film festivals at the library. We had wonderful collaborations with not just local individuals and organizations and institutions and educational organizations, but the one I think that I guess I'm proudest of is our collaboration with the National Black Arts Festival. They were always amazed at the work we did and how we did it with such a little bit of money. And the presentation, I certainly can attribute that to my former colleague, Denise Burnett, who's in the audience. Her professionalism certainly stood out in the work. And I remember the director of NBA asking, Stephanie Hewley, how do you do this? I said, we have the best, staff. I think they were in awe when we had Ruby D here. And she asked me, how did I pull that off? And I said, I just called and asked her. And she told me, that she had a certain price, but I told her I couldn't. I said, this is what I can do. And she said, okay. But she was absolutely wonderful here at the research. You remember that? Yeah, having Ruby D here at the library during the National Black Arts Festival. And then as reference and research, being able to offer not only just to the layperson, but to schools and to individuals who are looking for information about Atlanta history, the Southern history, national and international as well. Because we have a wealth of materials international, the Caribbean and Africa as well, here at the Research Library. So our collection is very diverse, very inclusive of the Africana experience.
Sykes Rogers is going to talk about our community outreach, the different programs we work with.
Okay, they tell see still boss lady, thank you. I didn't know it was on off. We were very fortunate early on to bring a Morris Brown student on board, and Casper Leroy Jordan, who obviously we all love. I said, I run into this guy. He's over at Morris Brown. And so I was going on, and Mr. Jordan said, I know who he is. So he found some money from somewhere, and that was Herman Skip Mason. He started out with us as, I think he was a junior in Morris Brown. I don't really remember. No, he was at Morris Brown. And I was so amazed with what he was doing at Morris Brown. And so he helped start our oral history collection. Now, I'm the person with 1,000 ideas, and then try to get some job descriptions going, and Casper Jordan would find some money, and Lomax, when there was no money with Fulton County, anybody, he would tell me where to go to pick up a check. So that's how we were able to collect, not so much, we found a part-time job for Skip Mason, they got that, but I wanted to get oral histories, and the first oral history collection I was able to get was Harold Lamar. Anybody remember Harold Lamar? Okay, was able to get his collection, did the George Jelks, talked him down from what he was talking about, and went over and picked up a check that was made out to Harold Lamar. I don't want my name on anything. I'm a county employee, okay? But I'm also a very active activist in West End and other places, and so I went somewhere and picked up a check and, told Skip, your name is on it, and we're not going to do business in the library. I'll meet you at Pascal's. That's the Atlanta way. And so he developed that collection. I don't want to leave out Miss Sarah Alexander. Some of you may remember her because her husband was one of Maynard Jackson's inside people. I don't know what he did for Maynard, and I don't want to know. But I got a call from Emory University that then had a library school, and the guy over the library school was just absolutely a dear friend. I mean, we would go out to different places to eat. You know, that's when I learned about German food. I'm from Mississippi, and yes, I was exposed to a lot, but I hadn't had German food. And so he called me. He said, call me on my home phone, again, the Atlanta way. He said, I have a lady who knows Atlanta back and forth. Can you find a place for her? And she was an older woman at that time, probably where I am now. And I said, well, we have a few rare books, and Dr. Lomax and some others, the families are donating books, and I really need that managed. And some kind of way, Casper Leroy Jordan found a job slot and put her in there, and she just managed those rare books so beautifully. Now, what am I supposed to be talking about, Jill? What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? Oh, okay. Folks know outreach and program. So the oral history became the big outreach. Thank you, ladies. Became the big outreach. The Smithsonian, we had some people we knew there, and they said, we want to bring traveling exhibit, field to factory. And so we weren't really completely set up, so we had it at the Apex. And Skip Mason carried that program out, and others. But that really started us with oral history, and we went on to the National Endowment for the Humanities. They helped put together several programs, and at some point, early in the 80s, I think it was, I entered a contest, really was pretty tough, and had to write up what my personal research was at the time. And that personal research had to do with black landowners in the South. And so I got accepted. I went to Chicago and spent a couple of weeks, and they gave me the title Humanities Scholar. I'm like, oh, that sounds good, right? And so we were able to do quite a few, programs with National Endowment for the Humanities. And one we did with University of Georgia, and I was able to deliver my essay about black landowners, including my family, a lot of other people in Georgia. And from there, we were able to get several funded grants through the Georgia Humanities Council. And they connected us to other organizations from Emory to NAACP, I mean, you name it. And we were doing co-programming with them. And so when I came to Auburn, I was assigned to programming, even though my real area is research. But I said, I run my mouth, I call people, I can do, and I can write a little bit. So that was what I came in to do.
One of the proudest things I want to talk about is people come to use this library, and they work it to come and use it. They have projects that last years. Okay, the Martin Luther King Historic District and the President Carter's Presidential Library. For 10 years, starting at the old building, going to this building, every summer we had a different group of interns coming over here looking at the boundaries between the two sites. Well, when you drive down North Highland, from Boulevard to Ponce de Leon, Freedom Parkway, that's the result of the research they did. The Martin Luther King Historic District essentially ends at the bridge of Glen Iris, and the Carter Presidential Library starts right about Elizabeth Avenue, and it goes over to the Freedom Parkway. So they were able to develop all the housing, all the restaurants, doing that down that street once they got through figuring out where the boundary was and how Freedom Parkway was going to be at the time. 10 years. And as you drive down Freedom Parkway now, most of the research was done in this building. Okay. Gloria, do you have anything you want to add?
I do. But, you know, sitting here listening to these two young ladies that I've worked with for so many years, it just brings back so many memories because I was with them with everything that they talked about. I was like, yeah, I remember. We had programs, like Sharon said, and she is an archivist at heart because every program that we have, she made a notebooks, and there is a program from a flyer from every program that we've done. Denise was amazing with her artistic abilities. Like I said before, our staff is just, the staff is just amazing. One of the things I do want to mention, my part as a part of the staff that did not have anything to do with administrative work was that when Julie Hunter was here, I approached her and asked her if she was interested in our chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Tau Epsilon Omega chapter, East Point College Park. We were celebrating 5 years of being chartered, and I asked her if she was interested in us establishing a collection. And so we were the first sorority to establish a collection here at this facility. And so that's one of the things that I am so proud of, that she accepted that, and she even allowed us to, and this was when the library had 24-hour security. We were allowed to come in with our scrap and work on our scrapbooks, and we won many awards at our regional conferences, and we would be here late at night. So for that, I am truly grateful. But along that line, I also try to encourage other organizations, fraternal and sororities, to do what we did, to put your records here, because like Sharon said, those records are not just for us, they're for the future generations. And so we're still working on our collection here because we're periodically adding to it, and Derek has been very helpful with us in doing that. But do that with your friends as well. If you're in any organizations, encourage them to reach out to the archivist here and see if there's an interest in having your collection put here. I know Derek gets tired of me whenever I come. I have obituaries. I collect them from, if somebody I know that died, whether I knew them or not, I always tell my friends, make sure that I get a copy of the obituary so that I can have it added to the obituary collection here. So I guess I'm an archivist at heart too. But and it never stops. So I encourage that. And another area that I also encourage, we have African American veterans, and I don't know what people are doing about that, but there's a lot of history that we're losing when they pass away. And so that, sororities, and I'm done. And thank you so much for letting me talk.
Just let me just add one quick thing. The papers, no matter how small the collection, are important. And they switched me around wherever I needed to be, and they moved Sharon Robinson. I'm old school. I call people by their last name. They moved Robinson and stuck me in for maybe a year or so as acting archivist. And there were so many people that wanted to put their collections in, but they didn't think they were big enough. And so that was my area of convincing. And then Anita Martin, I have to say her name. Yes, she was technical staff. She really got that obituary collection going. And I can remember you going to funerals and saying, I need 2 copies for the library. Always, retired and still on the job. And I just, unfortunately, went to a couple last week and I got 2 copies. We train each other. And the other thing I want to talk just briefly, and I'm out of order, I know jokes, but I tend to be out of order. The American Library Association, Joyce Jelks and I presented at many conferences, and I think you presented at some too. We put the name of the Auburn Avenue Library out in the public, and Jelks goes to international conferences. That's the kind of commitment, and I see people still doing it. And I don't know if I can see Derek because I don't see real good. Derek, are you in the house? Okay, Derek, stand up, please, sir. And I'm from the old church background. Give people their credit. Derek is on point, and I am very pleased with what he's doing. He's been recognized nationally and probably internationally. I know he and Jelk's been working on that. But so we librarians and Boss Lady and others, we really represent beyond this building. And if you look us up, you'll see that we've done some interesting kinds of things. Thank you.
Couple of things. When I started in the library, I was technical staff as well. I was not a degreed librarian with a master's in library science. I am now. These are my library mothers. I have librarians, African American female librarians on both sides of my family. None of them live in this area. So I followed in these women's footsteps, literally. I would leave here, go to class at Georgia State for my undergraduate degree, and then when I moved on, I went and got my master's, very deliberately to carry on the traditions that they started. I now work for the Georgia Public Library Service. I run the Georgia Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. We're a division of the National Library Service, but our job is to make sure that all Georgians have access to reading material. In particular, audiobooks and Braille is what we deal in. So, there was a legacy that was started here. And one of the things that's really interesting about the legacy that is here is that it has these little seeds that are planted all over the place. And it's a living history that goes along with that legacy. Janice she can't tell you all the stuff she's been involved in, but one of the things that is really significant to my generation as a person who did grow up in Atlanta is there was an African American, well, back then it was Black History Month, essay contest. And all the documents are upstairs. The essays that were submitted by elementary, middle, and high school students. And I'm waiting for the person to do the documentary, to do to do the dissertation on those essays and what happened to those children. I guarantee you there's an essay up there for Keisha Lance Bottoms. I guarantee you there's an essay up there for Michael Render. I guarantee you if there's not an essay up there for them, there are essays up there for people who sat in classes next to them from K through 12 and possibly even college. And I just think that's a fascinating legacy that's just sitting, waiting to blossom. Nobody knows that this stuff is here. There's plenty of things up in those archives that are just like, I didn't know. There's so much stuff there that was just because Sharon was diligent in keeping binders. And Janice decided the kids needed to get, what was the prize? Was it like $50 or something?
At first it was $50, then I started begging in the community.
Yeah. And again, I was in elementary school when the Atlanta child murders happened. One of the things that it's documented, people have said this, they asked African American children to write your feelings, to write your aspirations, to write your goals, to write your future. Because someone is out here trying to take your future away from you. Write your future. And it's upstairs. If you want to read it, it's upstairs. All these people wrote their future. Keisha Lance Bottoms wrote her future. So that's one of the things that's just amazing to me about this building. People don't understand the resource that's here and the hard work that went into making this. And 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, somebody's going to find something, and everybody's going to know what this building is and what it's always been.
As a collector, I hope that the Auburn Avenue and everybody in this room is collecting about what has happened since 2020. All the things that's going on now. You go pull the things off the wall and stuff and send it to us. Because this is the information that someone's going to be looking for in 2026 to write their papers and research on. So with that said, we're open the floor for questions. Have any questions for us?
Joyce, before we do that, can I say one more thing? And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to monopolize. I think we really need to acknowledge the influence that Julie Hunter had on the development of this building. It was kind of amazing to me because I purposely put my daughter in my bio, and whoever picked the pictures picked a picture of Julie with my daughter in the picture. I was just like, that is fascinating. But Julie was our first administrator here. We were housed over in the Central Library before we opened. And they hired Julie, and some of us were like, she's coming from Baltimore, who is she? And then other people were like, oh, we know Mrs. Hunter. She taught us at Atlanta University. She was part of the field unit with the NAACP when Dr. Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter Galt integrated the University of Georgia. She was on the team that assisted that process. She used to work with Carla Hayden, who is now the Librarian of Congress. And she walked into this building with some very deliberate ideas about how she wanted us to be organized and how she wanted us to operate. And like I say, I call these women my librarian mothers, but they were my sisters. And she set the tone for that. Julie passed last year. I kept in touch with her all those years. And she was originally from Summerville, South Carolina, outside of Charleston. And she had told me a story one time, and I didn't grasp it. But not too long ago, a woman wrote an article about her in a scholarly journal. They had a call for papers about African-American female librarians and just, ethnographies and so forth. And one of her former employees wrote an article about her. It's called She is a Friend of Mind, M-I-N-D. And that's when I got clarity on the story she told me. She's a very fair woman, and she had gotten a scholarship to the University of South Carolina, and because she had won an oratorical contest, and they were so impressed with her, they give her this scholarship. She shows up, they realize she's African American, they took the scholarship away. So 6 years ago, I was kind of going through some stuff in my professional life, and I decided to apply to be the state director for the program that I run now for Georgia in South Carolina. And I got the job, and I called her, and she was almost in tears. She said, I never thought one of mine would be working for the South Carolina State Library. And it was just a real full circle moment, and it made me feel so good to know that everything that she had done in this building and for us and as a staff, and to formulate a certain type of repository to gather African American history and Atlanta African American history in particular, because that's special in and of itself. When Janice talks about the Atlanta way, it's not just a way, it's a unique way. There are very few cities in this country where advances have been made for African Americans. There's no other city in this country that has an Atlanta University Center. There's no other city in this country that really has an Auburn Avenue Research Library. For my generation, this whole corridor is very significant because, okay, Martin Luther King and his family had their church and their house on this same street, but do you guys understand that 2 blocks away was where Outkast filmed the Rosa Parks video? And when the controversy around the fact that the song was named after Rosa Parks came to the forefront, a lot of young African Americans were able to very articulately formulate a response and to make people understand that that was it was an honor. There was no mocking going there. We understand our history, and we understand the significance of telling people Everybody else got to get to the back of the bus. We're not going back there. We don't have to. That's what the significance of the song is. That's what the significance of the Atlanta Way is. So Julie very deliberately made sure that we were all here today doing this way. And I had to say that about her. They had a homegoing service for her that was just, it was beautiful. And there are a number of people in the room today who were there. They can attest to that. She was, and Gloria, not to, Julie was a Delta. So, you know, again, just the decision making in what is important in terms of telling this story and how she set the tone for that. I think it's very important that we acknowledge that today. So now I'm going to be quiet.
Joyce, I'd like to follow up a little bit. Mrs. Hunter was a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal librarian. One of the things she did, which we are still celebrating today, when I say we, I mean AARL, is in 1994, she wanted to do a Kwanzaa program. So she had me do it, and it was it was okay. 95, we expanded that program in a partnership with an organization that was just getting started in Atlanta called Giwai Mata. And we developed a relationship with them that has sustained and is still going on today, 29 years later. The Kwanzaa program that Hunter started. And at first, when we held the program, we selected January 1st, just unaware that the Fulton County government was closed. And we presented that program for a few years until they caught on. Why are you open on January 1st? And then we had to decide on another date. And so I wanted to acknowledge former staff member Sajada Zachary, who selected the day, Nia, for the Kwanzaa celebration that we still now present to the city of Atlanta, to everyone to attend, that is going on now for 29 years. And so that is one of those legacies that we're involved in and we present. So.
Ms. Joseph, I'm going to ask your permission. We have several staff members. Would it be okay for them to stand? Would it be okay for our staff members to stand? Please stand.
Denise, Amani, Angeline, Stan.
Willie Mae.
Willie Mae. Stan.
Joyce.
Joyce Burns.
Joyce.
And Ms. Sykes with a Y.
Yes.
Ms. Sykes.
Ms. Sykes with the Y.
There we go. Give them a hand. Give yourselves a hand. And I'm going to jump right before questions or comments. I want to jump to Ms. Strong because she's doing so much work since she's retired. Have we come up with when the November conference is going to be?
That would be a Derek question.
Derek, Mr. Mosley.
Mr. Mosley.
But it's in November, right, Mr. Mosley? Oh, Mr. Simmons can answer.
questions? Are there any questions?
Or comments? Please.
I'd just like to say I was honored to have been part of programming and to have worked with Ms. Robinson. She is a very hard worker. And this library, I'm so grateful that I had a chance to be part of such a legacy. And I have to say also, Ms. Robinson brought up Ms. Sajada Zachary. I just wanted to mention also, when we talked about Kawaya Mata, Miss Melika Kulumba, she went on to be one of the queens at Spelman College, but she founded that organization, and she told me personally that she felt like Miss Sajada Zachary put her on the map because she worked with Miss Robinson and other groups to get her here, and she said like after she came here to Auburn, opportunities opened up for her. I just wanted to.
I want to thank all of you again. For me, it was always special to have all of you here today. Ms. Sykes and I go back before I got here. I was a librarian at the West End Library on my first go around in Atlanta. And Ms. Sykes used to come into the library all the time, Mr. Rogers. And she would always tell me about Auburn. Oh, Mr. Simmons, she's always saying, you know Colin? Do you know Colin? And I did know Colin. But it was always like, a burst of energy. And I always remember thinking back then, man, I really want to be there. Because she would just, talk about it so much. And I'm like, man, I really want to be there. As a New Yorker coming in and of course, having that connection to the Schomburg and just saying, oh, man, this would be like perfect. So when the opportunity came, I knew before I ever got a phone call or an email about this position, I knew it would be the best job I ever had in my life. And it really has. All of you are amazing. Mrs. Strong, she is, like she said, she got me straight with a lot of things. Because I didn't know. I was just like, oh man, what am I walking into? And she was a blessing, truly a blessing. And one of the first people that I saw on my arrival was Miss Sykes, and she was just so genuinely happy to see my face, and I was so happy to see hers. So I've kind of been a member of the family before I was actually a member of the family. And so, I appreciate everyone. It's wonderful when I see old faces. I'm happy to see this Kaya up in here. I wish I would see some others. Hopefully, as we start to do these programs and start to get these things going, we'll see more older faces coming up in here who we haven't seen since they retired. Because again, this is home. And where even if you don't see some of these ladies right here, on the staff any longer, you're always welcome. We are family. We appreciate all of you, all the work that you have done. We do have some gifts for those on the stage for them doing this today. So I want to make sure that and this is only the beginning. We have other things planned. Going down the line. Thank you. So does anyone else have any further comments, questions?
I did want to throw out a hip hop name who's one of my godsons. And he came up with Atlanta influences everything. And that's Bane Jordan. So hopefully we'll pull him in. I did leave him a message. He had an event tonight. He couldn't come. But he said, the library, that's what he calls this. The library.